Hey, it's Ethan here. So this video, I'm going to be sharing how you can start conversations with ideal clients on LinkedIn. Because if you're someone that at the moment you know that you need to be doing outreach, you need to be sending those messages to your ideal client, but you don't know how to start the conversation without feeling salesy or just uncomfortable, then this video should help you give a bit more clarity. So when I am sending that first message to an ideal client, bearing in mind, because I like to focus on warm outreach, this will be usually to people that are my intent based leads. Now, obviously, you have to apologize for handwriting. Now, intent based leads, just to briefly cover this, I've covered this in other videos, is pretty much your connections, your followers, your engagers, and your profile viewers. Because I find that these are the people that are the warmest in comparison to who you can reach out to. Anyway, when I'm sending a message to one of these people, I usually like to follow a bit of like a three-part process. The first thing is W. The second, which bear in mind, the W stands for where. The second is C, which is compliment, and which is awfully spelt. And then the last one is then question. So this is usually the sort of format structure I like to use when sending the first message, and this really isn't that complicated. So the first thing is where. Now this is pretty self-explanatory, but what you want to do is that in that first message, you want to share where you found them, right? It can be really, really small, right? So for example, if I've just connected with someone, it might even be as simple as, hey, thanks for connecting, right? Which, as you can see, handwriting is getting a bit worse. But, simple as thanks for connecting, right? So, for example, if I just connect with someone, I might say, hey, name, thanks for connecting. And then obviously I'd go into the compliment in question. But just by doing this, I mean, this might not seem like much, but a lot of the times, people don't really know where you've come from, and people get messages all the time. And what happens that's very common is that messages will come out of nowhere, and people will be like, "Well, how did you even find me?" And a lot of the times it'll be like, "Ah, it's probably some sort of AI automation thing or whatever." Now, for connecting, just because, well, I mean, they obviously would have just accepted your sort of connection request, so I imagine this wouldn't be too much of a shock. However, if someone say has like sort of engaged on your post or viewed your profile, then even saying, "Hey, thanks for engaging with my content," or "Hey, I saw you viewed my profile," it just even to something as small as that. Don't make this lengthy, just really, really short will at least make them know, that's how they found me, right? It's just a small little thing that, like makes them do that. And the thing is that this sort of part here, this is effectively just thanking them or saying, hey, I saw you did this thing to me. Right. And so it makes them realize, I did, I took that action and this is the response of it. Right. So it's almost as if like you're just coming back and just saying, hey, thanks for doing whatever you did. Right. That's really the first thing. Second thing is compliment. Now, I mean, self-explanatory, but you want to then compliment them. However, I don't just want you to compliment them because what a lot of the times has happens, and I've even happened to me, is well, compliments will happen. Well, there's a few things, right? First things first, if your compliment is really broad or even just vague, then you're better off without a compliment, if I'm honest, because a lot of the time I'll get compliments that are like, hey, loving the content you're putting out there, or hey, I love the quality of your work and whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, but the thing is that because it's so broad and vague, if it can be said to anyone, then it doesn't really feel like a genuine compliment. And so this obviously causes problems. And so what I find is quite good to do is we'll take a look at their profile, right? Take a look at their profile, maybe some of their recent content, find something that you can compliment them on, which you actually, which obviously first of all you want to make sure it's genuine, but as a bonus, compliment them on something they genuinely appreciate, right? Because I find that if someone compliments me on something that I would actually like to hear, or like a compliment I really would like to hear, then that stands out even more, right? So, for example, like if I see someone posting consistently, instead of and the content looks good, instead of just saying, "Hey, love the fact that you're posting consistently," or whatever, I'd probably say something to do with how I can see that the copywriting and that like like the copywriting skill that you sort of worked on with your content has really paid off, or something like that, like something specific about their sort of skill in what they're doing, which obviously that I can see. Because what this is going to do, it's going to feel more genuine to them. And the thing is that if you can like, and honestly, I think with these messages, the compliment is probably the most important one. Because if the compliment feels like it could only be said to them, and that it feels genuine and relevant to them, they're going to be much more likely to respond because you've given them something, right? You've given them something and you've taken that time to show that they are an individual. They are not just some other lead on a sort of like a timeline. So that's really that. Now, the last thing, obviously, is then question. Now, a lot of the time, because now, first of all, the reason why we ask the question is because we want to direct the conversation, right? We want to almost lead the conversation and have that like flow of where it's going. Now, when we're asking a question, it can be very tempting and easy to just like the compliment go pretty broad, right? So such as "How are you?" or "How's the business?" or "How are things?" or you know like those sort of questions. Now, what you'll find is this: you'll get higher response rates from it for sure. However, the only problem with broad questions, or at least I should probably put an arrow below, is that it leads to just like friendly chats, is what I would call it. Friendly chats where you never really get to the point where actually you're going to be able to get to that sell by chat stage or whatever. It just sort of ends as just this friendly casual conversation. Now, hey, if you're aiming to do that, cool. But if you're not, which given you're watching this video you're probably not, I'd avoid broad questions. And what instead I like to do is ask a specific question, but more specific to my sort of niche, or a topic relevant to it. And the reason why I ask this is clear, right? First things first, I want you to realize that when you're sending this first message, people aren't stupid, right? People aren't stupid because what they're going to realize is, okay, this person who I can clearly see, on their profile, they help people like me, has sent me a connection request or has messaged me. This means that they are probably looking to chat a bit more, like ask around and get to know my problems and such, and then get me onto a call. So they have that idea. That's not oblivious to them. The main thing is now is well, obviously, do they want to actually talk to that about you? Do they have that problem? So when I ask a niche or like a topic specific sort of question in relation to what I do, this makes it, or at least sets it up so that it's very much like, hey, are you dealing with this problem or not? Now, obviously, depending on how you set up your profile in terms of communicating this, and even a bit about your content, the response rates may vary. So, for example, what I might usually ask is something in terms of how their LinkedIn lead gen is, right? I might say, well, that might be the question to say, hey, how's the LinkedIn lead gen coming along? Are you doing well? Something like that. Now, the reason I ask this is pretty simple, right? This communicates very clearly about why I'm messaging them, right? Because, hey, honestly, there's nothing more frustrating than being in a conversation where someone pretends to care about you when actually they have like ulterior alternative motives. That's it. And so by getting this very to the point, then obviously it helps prevent that. Now, I'm going to be honest here. By doing this and getting specific, your response rate will lower. That is natural because not everyone is going to be necessarily comfortable sharing stuff with you. And also, not everyone might really have a problem that you solve. And that's okay. But what you'll find that when you ask specific questions like this, assuming your profile is set up correctly and your content is sort of going out as well, then you're going to get more likely to get responses here. And really, all we're doing after this, which obviously I'll talk about in another video, is we're able to ask further questions to identify if they do have a problem we can solve. But really, once someone has responded to this, you're either going to get a few responses. You'll get one response that says openly that yes, I do have a bit, or at least I do have a problem in relation to what you've asked. So someone might say to me that their lead gen is a bit inconsistent and they want it to be better. Great, that's a problem that I can help solve. So then obviously as I'd get into sell by chat, I'd ask more questions. You could get a response, which which is either someone that says, "Hey, no, I'm actually all good for whatever it is," right? So, for example, I've had people come back to me saying, "Hey, like I'm all good for like lead generation at the moment," and which usually for me, I then respond saying, "Ah, great. What's the next thing to make it better then?" Just because I ask that, just because some people will say I think they're all good just as a way of being able to like deflect it back at me. So by asking, hey, great, what's the next thing to make it better? Sometimes I might get a response where they might be a bit more open to saying, oh, well, I guess I could consider X, Y, and Z, in which that's when we can have a conversation. And then obviously the other response is either no response or you get, people just being mad at you. Now, honestly speaking, just touching on the last note with outreach, obviously you're like you're probably in a situation where you're maybe a bit uncomfortable with outreach and obviously worried about say coming off as salesy and annoying people. The thing is that when you're doing outreach like this, assuming you're very clear with your intentions, if there are people that get angry or frustrated at you for just trying to get more business and trying to naturally scale your business, then these are people you probably wouldn't want to work with anyway, and they're probably not that mature either. Because I've had people, which bearing in mind, I mean, I'm at the moment I'm 21 years old. I've had people that are sort of 30, 40, however old, that when I send them a message and bearing in mind it's very clear intentions, they get really annoyed and sometimes like very childish in terms of, their response to it. At the end of the day, it's just not to let yourself like get you down with this. Because obviously, this will take practice. This will take practice in terms of seeing results from it, in terms of finding out what's working and what's not. Right? I'm not expecting you to take this away and to get immediate results. But if you can follow this type of structure, I think it's going to really help you be able to get responses from the right people. Right? We're not looking to have everyone raise their hand and say, "Hey, I want you to help me" or whatever. We're just looking to make it very clear in terms of how we found someone, make it very clear that we've actually taken the time to look at them, making it very clear in the direction we're trying to take this conversation, and if they're open to having that. So overall, this is effectively the video I want to do today. Kind of thing that if you can apply this and start sending these first messages to your intent-based leads, this is really going to help. Now, the only other thing I would say is that if you're wanting to sign clients quicker with LinkedIn and just actually really get more of my full sort of approach, you can join my free LinkedIn lead gen community in the description below. At the moment, I'm hosting a bit of like a 7-stage LinkedIn lead gen challenge, which covers all things from identifying your ideal client through to content, through to sell by chat. So there's lots of processes there, which should really be quite useful for you if that's something that you're interested in, which will be obviously in the description below. Other than that, hope you found this useful, and I'll catch you soon.